DaVo here from the Axiom Body Piercing Studio in Des Moines, Iowa. Located inside Skin Kitchen, where we do the modifying of the body. This episode, 7 things to consider before getting a piercing. A while back, I made up a pamphlet. It's been a couple years ago. It's basically this one, and it's the body piercing checklist. You can always get one of these at the front counter here at Skin Kitchen and Axiom. One of the things that I always try to specify in my consultations, etc., is some of the things that you need to consider before getting a piercing done. A lot of times we have that impulse to get something done right away, and we rush into it, and then we find out later that it's going to be a complication even after the fact. So that's why we kind of try to cover some of these things beforehand to avoid that situation of you making that phone call to me to go, is it okay to take the jewelry out? I had this done 2 days ago. Because it's always frustrating for me, and I'm sure it's frustrating for those that have just paid for a new piercing that they're very proud of, and they end up having to remove it for one reason or another. The first thing is work, employment. Though things have gotten a lot more lax as far as dress code, say it was when I started piercing 24 years ago, mainly because there's more people out there getting tattooed and pierced that a lot of employers have kind of gotten to the point where they have to accept it. However, you always want to consider that it will affect your income maybe in the future. It may put you kind of in the glass ceiling situation where if at any point in time where you're going to need to look very professional, it's not going to, most employers are not going to consider some ear piercings or an eyebrow piercing or a nostril piercing or a septum piercing to be professional. The other thing is a lot of companies have it already in their dress code. So you should probably speak to your employer before you get a visible piercing beyond maybe earlobes. And even with men, sometimes even earlobes is in there. You might be thinking, well, I'm not working, I'm waiting tables or whatever I'm doing right now, I'm working at McDonald's, and that's not really going to affect things until after I get out of college and I start going to get a career and I can just take the jewelry out at that point. The problem with that is anytime you pierce your body, you are completely changing your body. Removal of the jewelry will cause the hole to heal, but the fact of the matter is you will still have that scar there. Sometimes it's more noticeable than other times, but it is something you want to consider. Second thing is sports and social activities. Most high school sports, even cheerleading, I had somebody that was in marching band recently. They have in their rule book that you cannot have visible piercings or piercings of any kind to participate. A lot of this is set up by the state school boards or etc. I don't know exactly whoever governs that activity. Even in adult life, you might be entering into a situation where you're going to be in maybe an acting class, or you're doing something that's extra, or maybe you're going to be in a wedding, and getting that facial piercing is probably not going to be too welcomed. So always consider what you've got coming up down the road. Other concern is the safety equipment that you may have to wear while you're doing the sport, or stress or strain that you put on the piercing. If you're going to have to slide into home, you don't want a navel piercing. If you're going to have to wear a motorcycle helmet, you don't want an ear piercing because it's going to cause problems or agitation. One of my favorite stories about work affecting a piercing, a couple of the members of Slipknot had their eyebrow pierced, and getting in those masks and staying in those masks for an hour and 15 minutes to 2 hours a day, they would constantly flare up and have problems even after they healed. So keep those things in mind. Think about the future when it comes to sports and other social activities. Vacations. Think about it. You're on vacation, you're having fun. Do you really want to stop everything you're doing, go out, and spend 10 minutes doing a soak, and then clean the piercing twice daily? Also, you can't really control your environment when you're on vacation. You can't control how clean the bedding is. You can't control how clean the environments that you're putting the open wound in. And you can't really control how clean the water is. Water quality is always an issue from place to place. So, It's usually best to wait if you're planning on taking a vacation that's going to fit within the next, let's say if you're getting a facial piercing or an ear piercing done for the next 3 months, wait until afterwards. If you're thinking about getting a navel piercing or a nipple piercing, I would suggest waiting 6 months until after the piercing or after you're back from vacation, and then do the piercing. So number 4, medical conditions. If you have pre-existing medical conditions such as, for example, diabetes, immune deficiency disorders, HIV, or hepatitis, or things that do affect your ability to heal and your ability to fight off infection, I don't suggest getting the piercing done until you've consulted a doctor and asked them about the process. Also, if you're planning a family, thinking about getting pregnant within like the next year or so, consider not getting the piercing, because especially if it's below the waist, where it might be affected by body changing size and shape as it does during the pregnancy. Also, if you are pregnant, do not get a piercing done. There's a lot of issues. Not only is there a strain on your immune system already because you're growing a life, but also there's the issue of the possibility of the stress of the piercing could in fact cause a miscarriage. So never get pierced when you're pregnant. Number 5, swimming. With an open wound on your body, you do not want to swim. A lot of people will be like, well, I'm going on vacation, it's a very pristine area, there's not a lot of pollution, I'm only going to go in scuba diving once, or what have you. The fact of the matter is, if you are in a healthy water source, there are millions of microorganisms that live in that water, and every one of them is a foreign pathogen to your body. You have an open wound on your body, they will find a way to get in, and that will cause an infection. So no swimming. Pools, everybody's always thinks that pools are safe, but the reality, there's a few things that you need to consider. The first thing is how pools actually filter the water and purify it or clean it. They don't really purify it. The chemicals actually cause all of the contaminants to bond together, and then as it goes through the filters, those contaminants are taken out. It is not a full range of all the microorganisms that live in that water. You are generally outside, so it's any pollution that's in the area is going into that water. Not all of it gets out. The other problem is most people do not bathe before they get in, so anything that's on those people's body is in that water. On top of that, people urinate. Kids are swimming with swimmer diapers, with fecal matter in their diapers. The list goes on and on and on. Also, because most of us swim when it's the hottest and the most crowded, especially public pools or hotels where there's a lot of people in there, the system cannot keep up with the amount of contaminants that are coming into the water. The only really safe way to submerge a piercing is in your own clean bathtub, where you control the quality of the water and you know in fact the surfaces have been cleaned before you take the bath. The other thing that people always ask about is hot tubs. Don't get in them. Especially hot tubs in hotel rooms where you have no idea what those people have been doing in there and when it was cleaned last properly. Number 6, almost done. Medication. If you're on any type of medication that's going to thin the blood, that is an issue. If you're on any medication that is mood altering, usually isn't an issue. Most street drugs, though, and alcohol and etc., tend to be amplifiers. They will make the experience not more calming and less painful. They generally add to the situation, and especially if you have any anxiety about getting the piercing done in the first place, because it affects your mental state. The other thing we'd be concerned about is if you're getting an oral piercing, which part of the healing process is rinsing 4 to 5 times a day with an antiseptic mouthwash, that if you are on an antibiotic where the bacteria is already reduced in your mouth, that you could be at a higher risk for creating a bacterial infection or imbalance and getting an outbreak of thrush. The same thing could be said of creating the same situation in genital piercings. So, always consult your piercer before you get something done if you're on any type of medication. Lastly, lifestyle changes. This especially comes up with nipple piercings and anything that's of a sexual nature, tongue piercings, etc. If you do have a committed partner and basically your sex life's going to change because they have to use a latex barrier or you're going to have to use a latex barrier, you need to consult them about that. Generally, my belief is it's your body, do what you want with it, but if it's going to affect the other person, at least have a conversation about it. Other than that, I think that pretty much covers most of it. There's probably some things I missed, but in case, whenever in doubt, if you're like, well, I wonder if that matters, get a hold of your piercer and ask that question. Other than that, have a good day. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was edifying. I hope you learned something. And we'll see you for your piercing needs in the future. Do make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to check out my personal channel, go ahead and subscribe to that. If you'd like to see more information on piercing and education that I've done, other videos, click on the playlist. If you'd like to see the latest video that we've uploaded to this channel, feel free to click on that. Have a good day, and always click that notification so you get notified when we have new videos.